guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video I'm so excited about because it's going to be a fun tier ranking style video. That's right, today I'm going to be tier ranking the most popular fantasy books according to Goodreads of the past 3 years. But before we dive into the video themselves and the list itself, first a word from this video's sponsor, which is Dime Beauty. I'm so excited to be partnering up with Dime Beauty for this video. I am a huge skincare skin fanatic and their products are truly delightful and I'm so excited to chat about them with y'all today. But if you're not familiar, Dime Beauty offers luxurious skin, beauty, and wellness products at affordable prices. They're also vegan and cruelty-free, and they also use recyclable glass packaging, which is not only very fancy feeling, but amazing for the environment. They also offer 60 days return guarantee for all of their products, which I think is fantastic, especially when you're trialing something on your skin. And they also have free shipping for orders over $75. They have such an array of products. I'm going to be chatting about my personal favorites today. All of them are designed to bring moisture, dewiness, and just all the things you want for your face, skin, and body. Going into the winter season, I had a few things very top of mind, and my favorite Dime products are definitely oriented to my very natural dry skin. The first product I want to mention is my favorite product, and it is their Wonder Screen. I wear sunscreen every single day. Everyone should be wearing sunscreen every single day. It's so important for your skin health, not just from an aesthetic, but also from a medical point of view. But their sunscreen is amazing. A mineral sunscreen at a high SPF. But my favorite part about this is its finish. It is a mineral sunscreen, but it has no white cast. And it goes on so smooth and honestly feels like applying a serum to your face. It doesn't have that like greasy, terrible feeling that a lot of sunscreens can have. The other product I definitely want to talk about is their Glaze Hydrating Body Oil. Winter season is upon us and my body is starting to get so dry. Put it on after I get out of the shower and it makes me feel much like the name implies, like a glazed donut. Again, Dime Beauty has such an array of products to explore and try out for yourself. They also have some incredible bundles. My favorite is probably their Works bundle, which has everything you need to feel confident in your skin this year. And I, of course, have an offer code with Dime Beauty. If you use my code Reagan20, you'll be able to get 20% off your order. I will include a link down to their site below and my current favorite products. Again, they have so many incredible options depending on your particular skin needs and skin type. Thank you so much to Dime Beauty for sponsoring this video. I am truly obsessed with your sunscreen. Alrighty, but let's go ahead and dive into the tier ranking. Quick reminder that this is going to be a tier ranking of Goodreads, like most popular fantasy novels of the past 3 years deemed by them. I'm assuming based on shelved and like number of ratings that they've seen across these novels. Quickly going over my tier ranking list. First, we have amazing, which are like new all-time favorites, 5 out of 5 stars. Then we have good, books that I enjoyed, but maybe just didn't love quite as much. And then we have books that I read and wouldn't necessarily recommend. And then we have haven't read but want to, or no thanks. Because while I have read most of the books on these lists, I haven't read all of them. So I needed to have a category to capture those. There are a lot of books that I literally own on this list that I haven't quite gotten to yet. But nevertheless, let's just go ahead and dive right in. The first book is Babel by R.F. Kuang, a very popular book from last year and one that I really enjoyed. So I'm going to actually put this in amazing. This is a historical fantasy story, a standalone novel set in Cambridge, tackles a lot of complex and interesting issues. I really like R.F. Kuang's writing. She's one of my favorite authors. So this was definitely a good place to start and a really great book that I would recommend. Just to quickly pivot to Peace Talks by Jim Butcher, I'm going to put that in no thanks. This might be a little bit surprising, but this is like the 17th or 18th book in the Dresden Files, and I've given the Dresden Files so many chances. I think I've read like the first 4 or 5 books within this series like numerous times, and I just cannot get into the writing style or even more so the character perspective. I just don't like reading from Harry's point of view. So I don't see myself, and I don't have any plans to read this like 18th installment because I never got past book 6. So that's where that's going. Then we have Crescent City by S.J. Maz. I'm actually going to put this in good, which might be surprising, but I actually rather enjoyed Crescent City. Like, by no means a perfect novel, but from a urban fantasy, romantasy point of view, this book was solidly entertaining, if you ask me. I enjoyed the romance and the back and forth, and I also found the setting of all of these different magical creatures living in this one place with these different neighborhoods with different political elements to actually be pretty compelling. That being said, quick shout out, while I liked the first one, I hated the second one. I'm also a little confused why the second one isn't on this list, but that is a mystery for another day. But I'm going to put Crescent City in good. Then we have The Jasmine Throne, which I'm also going to put in good. This is a sapphic, political, enemies to lovers fantasy series. I really like the character dynamics and the will they won't they. I felt like the political elements of this book could be a little bit more, but I liked it. It was solid. Jade Legacy, gotta put that in amazing. This is the third and final book to the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee, one of my all-time favorite fantasy series. Just everything about it. This urban fantasy, crime, family situation, all of the characters, the intensity, the legacy, just all of it destroyed me immensely. I was not the same after reading this book. Then we have Hidden Palace. I'm going to put this in haven't read but want to. I've read most of the first book of this like historical fiction fantasy series called Gollum and the Jinni, which follows two unlikely magical creatures making their way to America in the turn of the century and their like integration into different communities within New York. It's so good. I love the writing style, just the concept, and the audiobook was amazing. I own this book. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Then we have Malice, not by John Gwen. Don't get confused like I initially did. This is a dark, like romantasy style story. I think it's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. I just honestly haven't really heard of it, and the inputs of it just don't really call out to me. I like romantasy, but the Sleeping Beauty element for some reason just wasn't for me. But what is for me is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwen, which is just so good. I've become a John Gwen fangirl, as we have seen. This is his newer series inspired by Vikings and Norse mythology. It's a multi-POV book about gods coming back to life. It's dark, it's grim. I love the characters, especially one of the female main characters, which is one of my favorite characters in fantasy right now. It's just so interesting to read. Nature of Witches. I also own this book, and I also have not read it yet. I've owned this book for years. I love a witchy read. I don't know why I haven't picked this book up yet. Then we have The Inheritance of Accordia Divina, which I love. This to me is almost like literary fiction leaning, but it basically follows a set of characters, all a part of the same family. And at the beginning of the book, they're invited to the matriarch of this family's home, where she tells them that she is going to die, and then she spontaneously transforms into a tree, and also like leaves a legacy of magic on some of the characters. And then we follow these characters. This book is set in the past and the present. It's so magical, and the writing is fantastic. Also love A River Enchanted. I'm going to put that at like the very top of good. I love A River Enchanted. I gave the first one like a 4.25. I gave the second one a higher rating. And if the second one was here, it would probably be an amazing. But this is another like beautifully written, community-oriented story with great characters and romance and just great concept. I love Rebecca Ross right now. Then we have Holly Black's Book of Night, which I'm going to put in This was one of my most disappointing reads of last year, one of my most anticipated releases. I was so looking forward to read Holly Black's adult debut, and it just really under-delivered for me in almost every way. So I'm just going to put that in Empire of the Vampire by Jay Kristoff. I'm going to put in no thanks. I've read a couple Jay Kristoff books and I didn't love them, and I honestly just don't have any interest in checking out his newer work. So that is where that's going to go. But Rhythm of War by Brandon Sanderson is going to go in amazing. I love the Stormlight Archives so much. Stormlight Archive fangirl. This fourth installment was fantastic. All of the characters, the massive plot lines, and just the implication of all the different directions in which we could possibly go in this world is almost overwhelming. But I can't wait for book 5. I love epic fantasy, and this is such a fantastic epic fantasy series. I could read it over and over and over again. Siren Queen by Niveau, another book I own and have not picked up yet. This follows like a Hollywood starlet, I believe in the 20s, and has kind of a magical fantasy element to it. Niveau's writing is fantastic, so this is a book I want to get to soon. Then we have The Wolf and the Woodsman, which I'm going to put in good. I really enjoy Ava Reed's writing, and I think conceptually this book was really strong, but elements of the execution just didn't entirely work for me. I found the first 50% of this book great, second half not as great. She had so many great ideas, just not all of them executed with the amount of nuance I think they needed. But yeah, I like Ava Reed's writing a lot. So I still recommend this book. It just wasn't my favorite. The Book Eaters, another book I own and have not read yet, but want to. This especially seems like a weird fantasy novel where people can consume books and then like retain the information of the books like inside of them. Love that concept. Similarly, I haven't read, but now own Court of Silver Flames, which I'm going to put here. This, like a few months ago, would have been in no thanks, but something has come over me where I'm just curious to see how this book is going to be and if I'm going to like it. I do think it's important to note that I have read all the other books out in the ACOTAR world, including the novella, and I just didn't love the third one, which made me hesitant to pick up any further installments. But I do love Nesta. I've had some friends tell me it's fun. Who knows? So that is where that is going. But Veronica Roth's The Chosen One, another book I'm just not particularly interested in reading. I've read some Veronica Roth books in the past. I think many of us have with Divergent. And I just didn't love them. So I'm just not super compelled to check this one out. When Women Were Dragons was a really good book. I would almost describe this a bit more as like speculative fiction, but it's set in a world that's exactly like our own, except women or anyone with enough rage can transform spontaneously into a dragon. We follow our main character who's kind of dealing with the legacy and implication of the women in her life and how this has impacted them and her. It's a really strong concept. Elements of the execution I thought were also fantastic. It's like a 4 out of 5 star book. It's really good and will leave you a lot to think about too. I enjoyed it. Then we have Spellbreaker. This is another book that I haven't read, that I don't own, but I am curious about. It's by the same author as Paper Magician. Like, she has a strong strength of combining like elements of society and magic and a bit of romance, so I feel like this could be fun. A book I also don't own but do want to read is A Marvelous Light, another like society romanticy book. This time I think it also centers like a magical society, which I think just sounds really fun. Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. I love this book. This book is so good. This is a first book to a fantasy series inspired by pre-Columbian history, multi-POV. I love what the author does with the intensity of the plotting, religion, and just like watching all these characters converge. It's so hard to put down. Nettle and Bone, another book that I truly adore so much. This small little book packs such a punch. It reads like a dark fairy tale and follows our main character who goes on a journey to try to save her sister. I love the trope of like unlikely people going on a quest together, and this definitely has that. It's just one of my favorite books, to be honest. Then we have Empire of Gold, another amazing book. This is the third and final book to the Davabad trilogy, one of my all-time favorite fantasy series by S.A. Chakraborty. Highly political, great characters, great pacing. I love where she brought this book. I love how she wrapped everything up. It's just so good. The Woman of Troy, I haven't heard of, to be honest. I'm going to put it at the end of haven't read but want to, because even though I don't know what it's about, I do tend to like an ancient retelling or a humanization of like an ancient tale. So that could be interesting. Deadly Education. I read this recently and adored it. This book is like a magic school full of endearing characters and dark, complicated magic. I loved everything about it. It was so hard to put down. I got very addicted to it. Again, rather recently. Stardust Thief, I'm going to put here. This is another first book to a fantasy series. I feel like elements of it were very strong. Elements of it could use some work, but I liked the characters and the concepts of this quest-centered story. And I'm looking forward to see how the world balloons in book 2. I feel like book 2 will be like a make or break for this, but Stardust Thief was good. Atlas 6, I'm also going to put at the top of good, because I found this book actually to be rather fun. I know people love to hate the Atlas 6, but there's something about all of these characters going into this competition for this secret society and how like dark and dynamic the characters were. I didn't really like anyone. I didn't know who to trust, and it just was really a compulsive read, and I thought it worked for me anyway. Bone Shard Daughter, I am gonna say with this book. This hurts my heart a bit because this is a series I want to love so bad. I've read the first 2 books, but unfortunately just some of the character work and the plotting was just a little straightforward. I never felt very compelled by the writing style. I'm heartbroken about this. It might be worth checking out for yourself, but personally I just didn't love it very much. Then we have Her Majesty's Royal Coven. Similar, I don't own this, but I love the idea of a royal coven, so I'm not uninterested. For some reason, Foxglove King is another book that I'm just like not very compelled to pick up and read. Let me know if I'm wrong to have that perspective. But yeah, it's just kind of very low on my radar. So for now, it's in no thanks. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, this very popular book by V.E. Schwab. I like this book. I don't hate this book. I don't love this book. I think I like V.E. Schwab's writing. I think her writing was pretty good in this. It wasn't my favorite of her books by any means, but I think for the most part, I found it interesting. I can understand why people love it. I can also understand the very valid criticisms against this book too. So for me, it's just kind of like in the middle of good. That's where I'm going to put it. Black Tongue Thief by Christopher Bowman. I love this book. This is an interesting mix of like horror and fantasy, and again combines that trope of unlikely people going on a quest together, and the dynamics and the humor in this book that results from that is just too good. I've never really read a book quite like this. I feel like Christopher Bowman has very unique stories and ideas, and I was not disappointed by this at all. The Lost Metal by Brandon Sanderson I have to put into haven't read but want to, which feels so funny because this is the 5th book in the second era to the Mistborn series. I've read all of the other books. I just haven't gotten to the Lost Metal yet somehow. I don't know why, I don't know how, but I just haven't yet. So I'm gonna put that there, but I like it. Flintlock fantasy, great character dynamics, mystery, really builds on itself. We like Brandon Sanderson in this house. Then we have The House on the Cerulean Sea, which I'm just gonna put in I think this book has some complicated elements to it that I'm just gonna leave that there for now. Then we have Sorrowland by Rivers Solomon, another book that I really need to read. I'm actually embarrassed I have not read this book yet. I've heard such fantastic things about this author, his writing, all of his books, to be honest, so that is definitely going there. Keeper of Enchanted Rooms. I want to read this book really soon. It sounds so cute. A romantasy story that I also haven't read. Basically follows a guy who like inherits his house in like the 1800s, and there's something magically wrong with it. So then he has to work with this other person from this like magical house society that helps fix this problem. Again, I think it's a romance, and it just sounds so cute. Same with The Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, another romance story that seems to have like a good splash of magic, but again more romance forward. This time we follow two like nemesis who unwittingly begin to write to one another, and then I think they like fall in love through letters. I love the You Got Mail trap. It's so fun, and this just sounds so fun. We also have The Unbroken, which I also haven't read, but also own. I've owned this book for too many years to not have picked up yet. I feel like I'm gonna really like this book. But then we have Fourth Wing, which I'm gonna put in at the back of one of the most popular books of this year, a dragon romantasy story. I have a whole reading vlog on this. I have shared a lot of my disappointment with this book. I wanted to enjoy it. I like romantasy. I love to be entertained, but unfortunately the plot holes and just the plot pacing of this just absolutely kept me from liking this book. It was so distracting. I just didn't like it. I won't elaborate too much further. Then we have Kayake, which I'm going to put here. This book was good. I felt like it had some strong elements and some weak elements. I think the concept especially was very strong. It's sort of a fantasy reimagining and humanization of a well-known figure who is often vilified in history. So I thought that was really interesting. And I liked it. I just didn't love it, but I would probably still read the sequel. Then we have A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I am going to put here. I'm actually going to put this here, which like, this is tricky because as a romantasy and as a cozy fantasy, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, but like understand that it is not necessarily like better than these books, but for what it was trying to achieve, I thought it was very successful. This is a story that follows our main character who's a witch who has always kind of had to live separate from everyone else to hide her magic. One day she's offered an opportunity to teach 3 young witches in a faraway house, and it's like so full of found family. It's so endearing, it's magical, there's romance. I literally cried listening to the audiobook. It's just so cute. Thistlefoot I am going to put here. I'm gonna put it here. This is a newer release. It sucks because this book I feel like had all the components to be something I'm obsessed with, but I found it to just be like okay. It wasn't bad. It basically follows 2 siblings who have kind of been apart from each other for a long time. They have very different like life philosophies, but they inherit this house unexpectedly, which is like a house on chicken legs, the Baba Yaga's house, and they begin to live and travel in it, and then they're like pursued by a dark force. Again, such a great idea. For the most part, it was good, but it wasn't amazing, you know? Then we have The Chosen and the Beautiful, which I'm going to put here. Here's the deal. This is by Nevo, who has beautiful writing. This is like a magical reinterpretation of The Great Gatsby. And if you love The Great Gatsby, you're going to love this book. I love Nevo's writing and her changes, but I just like don't love The Great Gatsby. And this is a pretty faithful like adaptation of The Great Gatsby. So if you don't love the source work, it's going to be hard to like love this book, but I love their writing. So I'm going to be reading more books by Nevo. And if you do love The Great Gatsby, you should definitely read that. Daughter of the Moon Goddess, I'm going to put here. I'm pretty vocal about how much I desperately wanted to love this book, but just didn't. The plot pacing was just a little too quick for me. I just didn't feel attached to the narrative style or the characters, but the concept is so good. Daughter of the Moon Goddess trying to save her mother from an evil celestial emperor. Then we have Fairy Tale by Stephen King, another book that I think was just okay. Portal fantasy, which I like. You know, our main character transported to a new world and he's trying to save it. He has a dog companion. Good inputs. The writing just like wasn't really for me. And I also found the main character to be a little bland. And like what the author chose to focus his time on felt unbalanced too, if I'm being honest. Then we have Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, which I'm going to put in good. A sequel to the very beloved Ninth House, which I do think I liked more than Hellbent. It follows our main character who lives on a very prestigious college campus, and she basically works to help regulate the dark cults on campus because there's like magical ley lines. It's good. I really liked the first one. I found the sequel to be pretty good too. It wasn't as good, but I still enjoyed it. I really like Leigh Bardugo's writing, and I think conceptually this is just such a interesting idea to explore, so I'm going to put that there. Adirondack, another book I own that I have not read yet. I love, as I said, a myth retelling, so I'm going to put that there. Encyclopedia of Fairies. This book is cute. I like this book. I'm going to put this book here. This story is a romantasy book following our main character who is named Emily Wilde, and she specializes in fairies, and she's working on a fairy encyclopedia. She travels to this faraway place, and unfortunately her academic rival also travels there, who very much gives like Hal vibes, and they begin to work together. I think this book balances like the fantasy fae parts of it and the romance pacing like so well. It's just very endearing, and I really loved how the whole thing came together. I will definitely be reading the sequel. Then we have The Witch's Heart, which I am going to put up here. This book is so good. I'm almost, again, surprised to see it on this list because I almost view it more as literary fiction, but this is a literary interpretation of Norse mythology, and the author's writing is truly stunning, and I also feel like the author captures the sort of bizarreness of these god stories, and she keeps that essence but also has so much humanness to them too. So the strangest things will be happening in this book, but at the same time I feel like it has such a human layer to it that just makes it a much more interesting story. And it's just stunningly written, if I'm being honest. She Who Became the Sun, one of my favorite books, a historical fantasy story, often described as Mulan meets the Song of Achilles, which I think is pretty apt. So good. Dynamic characters, lots of gray morality. Loved the first one. Then we have Day of Fallen Night, which I'm also going to put in For some reason, this series by Samantha Shannon just doesn't click with me. Parts of it I like. Parts of it I just really don't like, particularly the plot pacing just doesn't land. It sucks because I want to like it so much, and I feel like so many people love it, and I think conceptually it's a strong idea, but for some reason it just doesn't work for me. Then we have The Once and Future Witches, which I'm going to put like all the way over here. I've almost unhauled this book so many times, so I don't know if it's even allowed to be in this category, but it just is going to be. It's like, I feel like I might like it, or I feel like I might not like it at all, and it might be too on the nose. I've just been consistently unsure about this book and if I even want to read it. Then we have Stoneblind, which I'm going to put here because I haven't read it and I don't own it and I don't have many opinions about it. For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, I'm going to put in another book that was just okay for me. I think, again, another example of like ideas that I think sound amazing and I wanted to love. This is a romantasy story about a woman kind of sacrificed the dark forest and the wolf that lives there. Turns out this wolf is actually a hot and misunderstood man. They begin to work together, has a complex sisterly dynamic too. Again, I wanted to like it. It just didn't fully work for me, and I just wasn't very engaged in the romance or the plot. And it's like, if I don't even like the romance, it's just kind of like a hard miss for me, you know? A Master of Jinn, which I am going to put in good. This is a really interesting like hybrid fantasy mystery story set in a steampunk inspired world. We follow our main character who is investigating a series of murders rocking her city. I love the setting, and P.D. Jelly Clark's writing is just like really interesting, and his world building is just great. Song of the River Rains, I haven't read before, but I'm kind of curious about it. It's a romantasy book. I like romantasy. It has very high and strong ratings, so maybe I will check this out. Legends and Lattes, I'm going to put in good. This is a classic cozy fantasy option following our main character, who I want to say is an orc, and she was once a part of like this adventuring party, mercenary guild, but she's tired of that life. So at the beginning of the story, she leaves and opens up a coffee shop and kind of gets involved in the community. It just makes you so hungry. The smells are there. The relationships are cute. It's not a perfect read, but was one that I found to be very endearing and I enjoyed through and through. Similar, we have The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi, which I enjoyed so much. Again, a quest story following unlikely characters and found family is great. And this being a renowned female pirate coming out of retirement, setting back out into the world, was just so good. I love S.A. Chakraborty or Shannon Chakraborty's writing. This was great. I can't wait to read more books following these characters. The City We Became is another fantastic book. N.K. Jemisin, one of my all-time favorite authors. I love all of the things she writes. This is a story set in New York, and basically it's like New York is personified into people. Like all the boroughs are represented in a different person, and they have to work together to save the city from an evil force. It's such a strange concept that N.K. Jemisin just succeeds in, creating. I love all of her books and her writing immensely, so this is definitely in the amazing category. Under the Whispering Door, I'm gonna put in good. This is a cozy but very emotional read. It's set in a tea shop that exists between life and death, and our character basically runs this tea shop, helping ghosts like spirit into the afterlife, explores grief and loss, and again, it's very emotional, but still a book I would recommend. Then we have Clayminstra, which I'm also going to just put on the end of, I haven't read, but maybe I'll want to. Another of the same category, like these all kind of go together. Nora Roberts' The Awakening. Okay, does anyone know about this book? I feel like I never see anyone talking about this online, but I always see it in bookstores, and like a lot of people clearly read this. It has a lot of reviews. I have no concept of this series. I've never read a Nora Roberts book. Should I? Is this a good one to start with? Let me know what you think about that. The Library of the Dead, I'm going to put in good. This is a really fun, like perfect fall read. It's set in a world where ghosts and the paranormal exist. We follow our main character who can speak to ghosts, and she gets wrapped up in a mystery trying to find kidnapped children. I love the main character of the series. Definitely like Mystery of the Week vibes. It's just a very like middle grade meets adult fantasy book, and it works for me. Then we have another Greek Roman retelling I have not read, so we're gonna put it there and move on. Witch King by Martha Wells, I'm gonna put here, and I'm gonna move this here. Move. Witch King is a standalone by Martha Wells. Another found family going on an unlikely quest. We follow our main character, who is a demon who wakes up in a prison, which he quickly breaks out of, and he's basically throughout the whole book trying to figure out why he was imprisoned and sort of the political realities of what's happening now, because a lot of time has passed, and he tries to bring like the old band back together. It's really good. Kind of confusing and a little complex from a writing style and world building point of view, but I think if you can get past that, you would really enjoy this. And we're really down to the final books. We have Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I loved. This is the first secret project released this year by Brandon Sanderson, and I was shocked by how much I loved this book. This is a Cosmere novel, and he basically describes this as if The Princess Bride was told from Buttercup's point of view. The whimsy and care and just how endearing and fun this story was while still having so much heart. And also attaching itself to the Cosmere so perfectly. I was just shocked by how much I loved this book. It felt like a fairy tale. It was humorous. It was delightful. It was so good. I love Tress of the Emerald Sea. And the last book I also love, actually, quite a bit. It's called Pure Nessie by Susanna Clark. This book is so weird. Read it for the vibes. Don't look into the synopsis. Just pick it up and try to figure it out for yourself. Kind of has a strong mystery element throughout this whole book, but it's truly a book like you've never read before. It is so weird, and the setting is so strange. The characters are so strange. It is so good. And there we have it. Let me just quickly peruse over everything I have here and make sure I feel okay with my settings. So for the ones I have read, I read, as I said, most of the books on this list, but I do have quite a TBR section here that I should get to soon. Yeah, you know, I feel good about this. I stand by this ranking, but hopefully this was helpful in some capacity. Tier ranking the most popular books on Goodreads of the last 3 years. Please let me know down below some of your favorite fantasy reads of the last 3 years, regardless if they're on this list or not, as I would love to know. Again, big shout out to this video sponsor, which is Dye & Beauty. I will have my offer as well as a link to their site listed down below as well. But thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!